This is because it's quite an important idea that Fodor is setting out in that article, but the way it's set out is incredibly complicated and convoluted. Everything else in the reader, it really is a good idea to spend hours and weeks on. The main idea in Fodor is very simple. I'm going to set it out right now, and very important, but I'm not really sure that the tangle of technicality with which Fodor sets it up is really justified, so I'm not necessarily recommending to you that you spend long hours in the Fodor. If you think you've got a key idea here, then that's great, and that should be enough. There's something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, at the end of next week, on Friday next week, we'll be starting in on the Wittgenstein, and I stopped labouring the point that you have to do the reading as well as coming to the lectures, but with the Wittgenstein, it would really be, it would be as if you went to a class in Shakespeare and thought, well, I can kind of figure out what's going on in the plays from the lectures. I never really had time to read that stuff. It would just be a real shame to do. You won't get the sense of it properly from the lectures. With the Wittgenstein particularly, you owe it to yourself to read the stuff as well as though luminously lucid the lectures are. Okay, there's a kind of tradition that at some point in the class you should be exposed to someone who actually knows something about the subject. And I know this is kind of controversial, but we're going to break with tradition. And Justin on Monday is going to talk about is going to talk about logic and conversation. Grace on implicature, on the way that meaning works in ordinary conversation. So this will give a kind of real, what should I say, ordinary social talk, kind of grounding, kind of connect for what we've been doing so far. And there won't be a lecture on Wednesday. I'm actually away then. And then on Friday we will start in on the Wittgenstein. Okay, so is that clear what the agenda is? Okay. So today, Dritschke and Fodor on meaning in the world order. And I want to begin with a kind of generalization of the problem we had for Dritschke last time. This is really Fodor's way of setting up the general problem that Dritschke was addressing. So Fodor talks about the disjunction problem. I'll then go on and just review Dritschke's solution again in those terms, then look at Fodor's example of the way the disjunction problem arises, and then finally the important thing in Fodor, his causal asymmetry theory. But I want to begin with just what the general issue is that all these theories are addressing. The idea is, if the use of language is part of the ordinary physical world, if it's not something imported into the physical world by ectoplasm or souls or something, if it's really just a natural phenomenon, then it should be possible to say something like this. There are standards of right and wrong for sentences. Sentences can be true or false in virtue of, and then what goes into the blank space here should be something from the natural sciences, something about the way that all the molecules are configured. You see what I mean? It should be possible to get something like that. If meaning really is just part of the physical world, then it should be possible to specify in physical terms what's going on when you say there are standards of rightness or wrongness for sentences, how it comes about that you can go right or wrong in using a sentence. And the way we've been simplifying this, I mean, what should I say? It's not simplification in the sense of a distortion, but taking getting the problem down to its most basic cases. As we've been saying, let's consider what it takes for x, the sign x, to refer to x's. And then the general picture we've got is x's refer to x, the sign x refers to x's in virtue of the fact that production of the sign x is typically caused by x's. I mean, that is brutally simple, but that's a nonetheless accurate statement of where we've got to so far after all these weeks. It's something like that. And that looks okay because x being typically caused by x's, that's part of the natural world, right? That's just what goes on in the ordinary non-supernatural physical world. Things cause each other. So those physical signs, x's, can be caused by the phenomenon of x's, and then x will refer to x's, and that's how come you get your standard of right and wrong. Right? If you've got all the signs referring to things, then you're on your way to an account of how the use of sentences can be right or wrong, right? You recognise that? That's where we got to? Yeah. And then the problem is, suppose that what happens is that x's cause x to be produced, but then there are lookalikes. There are things that you might think are x's, but are not really x's. Things you can be taken in by. Those will also cause the sign x to be produced. But then, in that case, why should we say that the sign x refers only to xness rather than to x or yness? So the problem is very, very general. Even if you state it in these brutally simple terms, you can see that this is going to be a very general problem. And then, in fact, anything that causes the sign x to be produced can be added in here. So you're going to lose that distinction between getting it right and getting it wrong. Anything that makes you produce the sign x will count as what you're using the sign x to refer to. So the causal theory, actually, it looks like it's saving us. We're getting an account of how there can be standards of right and wrong. But when you see this problem coming up, it looks like the existence of standards of right and wrong, the distinction between right and wrong is just going to be obliterated. So we've got to distinguish between two kinds of cause. You stated in this general way, it seems quite clear that what we're going to do is distinguish between one kind of cause for the production of a sign, the kind of cause that fixes the reference of the sign, and then the lookalikes, the causes of the production of the sign that might fall outside the reference of the sign. So this is another way of stating, a more general way of stating, the problem that was facing Dritschke last time. The rule is, I mean, the way the problem is stated, we've got to draw that distinction in naturalistic terms. We can't just leave it there. We can't just appeal to reference to explain this distinction. We've got to say what that comes to, that distinction, in ordinary physical terms. Yeah? Yep. Okay. So we've got to explain what that comes to, using only terms that don't involve meaning or right and wrong, terms that just unproblematically relate to the natural world. So it's not just that we can single out one kind of causation. We should be able to see why that kind of causation matters for reference fixing. Because we want to be able to understand how it is that that kind of cause could be fixing the standards of right and wrong. I mean, if you said, well, the kind of causation that matters for reference fixing is the kind of causation that's involved when light of a certain electromagnetic radiation within certain particular wavelengths is involved. Well, maybe that would work. Maybe you could get it coming out just right. That's when you've got reference and when you haven't. But you would have no idea why why electromagnetic radiation within those wavelengths was just the one that mattered for fixing reference. We wanted to be illuminating here why this kind of position should matter for fixing reference. So naturalistic is one thing, but it's not enough that the answer be naturalistic. We should be able to see its connection to the existence of standards of right and wrong for the sentences we're using. And on the other hand, if we just left it like this, sometimes causes of the production of X fix the references of X, sometimes causes of the production of X don't fix the references of X, and we just left it there, that will give the right answer, and you can see what it has to do with standards of right and wrong, but it's not naturalistic. It just appeals to the notion of reference that we're trying to explain. Okay? So we want it to be both naturalistic and to be illuminating about why there are standards of right and wrong in the first place. So that's the general problem. All right, does that sound reasonably what should I say? It's not familiar exactly, but recognizable. Okay, so Dretschke's form. Well, remember Dretschke's. Let me just restate. Dretschke's form of the problem was you've got stuff like you have the case where you have the Humble magnetosome, and what's causing the magnetosome to point straight ahead is let's say the geomagnetic north is straight ahead. And then you say, well, there are causes of the magnetosome pointing straight ahead that don't fix the reference here, like local magnetic north, like the use of the bar magnet. And then someone says, well, why don't we collapse these two and say that the structure pointing straight ahead refers to either geomagnetic north being straight ahead or local magnetic north being straight ahead, right? That is just Dretschke's problem. And Dretschke's solution was that we've got to have multiple routes to the firing of the structure. You only have a structure determinately referring R's firing determinately refers to F. Only if there are multiple routes to the firing of R, and the system is capable of learning new routes to the firing of R. So that we can't say it's either, if this is what's going on in the skin of the animal, then we can't say it's either I1 or I2 or I3 or I4. We can always find a new path that will take you beyond those that disjunction. And as it was better put last time actually by people in the class, that if you've got it set up so it's capable of associative learning, there must be something in the system that's making it capable of associative learning that is responding specifically to Fness. And when you think about it, that is, you might think that actually is too good an answer at that point, because you might think that shows that the structure, in order to be talking about associative learning of new ways of telling whether something is F, the system's already got to be capable of representing Fness, and we're actually just presupposing that the problem's been solved. To know that the structure is capable of associatively learning new ways of representing Fness, we already have to know that it's representing Fness. But then we're just helping ourselves to the idea that the problem's been solved, that the thing is representing Fness. But anyway, there are further problems. This thing actually teems with problems once you start thinking about it. It's really key to Dretschke's account that, suppose you just said, well, the structure will fire in response to Fness, and then if there's a certain amount of jiggery-pokery, it will also fire when these new pathways are engaged. Then that's just a causal description of the situation. That just describes what is happening here. Yeah? Then you say, now, why should that bit of biology have anything to do with getting it right or getting it wrong? You might say, this is naturalistic, all right, but it doesn't explain how right and wrong are involved. And it's here that this is what's so intuitive about Dretschke appealing to the idea of function, that if you know what the thing is for, then you've got the notion that it could be right or wrong. So you want to be able to say if the biological function of the state is to indicate Fness, then the state's referring to Fness, and if it's not the biological function of the state to indicate genus, then it doesn't refer to G. So if it's the biological function of the state to indicate Fness, and it goes into that state when there's nothing F around, then it's made a mistake. The thing is malfunctioning. So you explain rightness and wrongness of the informational content of the system in terms of the function. But what does it mean, function? This is the thing I was saying last time about mistakenly believing that you're popular, or mistakenly believing that you have a lot of control over what's going on around you. It might be that we have systems whose biological function is served by producing those illusions, but that's what they are. They're illusions. The optimality of biological function is one thing, and the optimality of truth seems to be a different thing. I mean, we want standards of right and wrong, but not just any standard of right and wrong will do. Another way to put it, someone was just putting it to me like this morning, is that on the face of it, this is a very selfish way to think about language, that after all that's being served by getting it right or wrong, by the biological functions here, are my objectives, my needs. The whole thing is being anchored back to the serving of my needs. So if I make a remark to you, then in this picture, what standards of right and wrong are appropriate here? Well, only whether the thing serves my needs. But of course, whether the thing serves my needs might have nothing to do with whether what I said to you is true or false. It may be that my needs are best served by you believing something false that I just said, right? I mean, that's the sorry truth about the way the world works, right? Sometimes it may be biologically optimal for me to tell you something false. So, although Dretschke's account is really ingenious in the way it appeals to function, to connect the biological facts to right and wrong, it's not obvious that the rightness or wrongness that connects to biological function is the same as the ordinary standards of truth and falsity that we have for sentences. So it may be that the whole approach is just a mistake anyhow. But it seems to me the whole thing is just a mistake anyhow. But there's obviously room for some manoeuvre here. You could try to rescue the theory. But my own hunch is that this is not going to work. This is going to get too complicated and not going to work. But I don't know. I should tell you too that there are many, many people working on this at the moment who think it's only a matter of time before something like this turns out to be correct. Okay, so that's Dretschke's solution and some dismissive remarks about it. Is that plain enough what the problems are at any rate for Dretschke's solution? Not really? Okay. So I said one kind of problem is with the way this multiple roots thing is meant to work. Doesn't it already have to have a way of determinately representing Fness in order to be capable of associatively learning new ways of detecting Fness? That's all right. That problem's all right? Yeah, comfortable with that? Okay, and then the next problem is, when you try and meet this constraint, I said, if we're going to single out a particular type of causation and say that's the one that matters for reference fixing, it mustn't be just an appeal to the involvement of electromagnetic radiation of particular wavelengths, for example. We've got to understand what it's got to do with right and wrong. That constraint is okay. Is that all right? You're going to pause me if this does not make perfect sense? Yeah? Well, it doesn't make perfect sense. Yeah. Okay. What's wrong? What in the world could be plainer than that? Suppose I say, okay, sentences can be right or wrong, right? We get true and false for sentences up here. And we're looking at the biological, physical world down here. Yeah? And I say, a sentence is true just in case it's associated with electromagnetic radiation with a frequency of 850 nanometers, right? And you say, okay, now I understand. I mean, the puzzle is, how can there be standards of right and wrong in the ordinary physical world? There are the laws governing the way everything behaves. How does it come about that there's such a thing as getting it right or wrong? That puzzle I've been stating right since the start of the class. That puzzle is plain enough. Okay, well now suppose I just single out some arbitrary set of physical facts, like the ones that involve this kind of wavelength. And I say, that's when you get something right. And all the rest is when you get something wrong. And you say, now you see. But you don't see. It doesn't make any sense. Why should that have anything to do with getting it right? Why should this have anything to do with getting it wrong? Why shouldn't it be around the other way? Why shouldn't it be some quite different collection of physical facts that matter? We want to understand, whatever the base class of physical facts is that we're appealing to, we want to understand why plausibly they have something to do with the standards of right and wrong that we usually apply to sentences and communication and in thinking. There's got to be a connect there. You couldn't put it any plainer than that, right? That's okay? Okay, you let that pass now. Okay, right. Okay, and now we look at Dretschke and we say, okay, I said there's this problem about how the associative learning thing is meant to work. But suppose we just bypass that. Suppose you say, okay, we'll give you that. Right? Then what's happening here? All that's happening is that you have a structure that fires in response to these signals, and there's lots of other signals it fires in response to, and we're singling out one subset here and saying, those are the ones where it's getting it right, and giving another subset, and we say, those are the ones where it's getting it wrong. But what have they got to do with rightness and wrongness? We haven't explained that yet. That's okay? That's fine to say? Okay. And then this is the duty of Dretschke's appeal to biological function. Because look, biological functions look like they're part of the ordinary physical world. Even in the ordinary physical world, you've got to say, look, as someone said, hearts are the function of pumping blood. Yeah? So it surely must be all right to say we can appeal to biological function down here to explain what's going on. But biological function has got something to do with rightness and wrongness. If you're serving a function, you're getting it right. If you're not serving a function, you're getting it wrong. Bingo! We made the connect. That's the idea of Dretschke's theory. That notion of function lets you make the connect between the natural world and the standards of truth and falsity for ordinary talk. You can see that there are going to be structures in the brain that all have biological functions, structures in the visual system that all have biological functions of indicating stuff around you, and then in communication, it's just more of the same. The words you're using just have these biological functions. Language is a biological organ. I mean, the language capacity is like a biological organ. It's an organ of your brain that's tuned to bits of your environment. That's what you use it for. And so you get it right or wrong, depending on whether those bits of your biology are serving a function. It's a great idea, right? You see, if I've explained that right, it should seem like a good idea. Yeah? But for that to be correct, for that to work, then consider the way that an ordinary sentence can be true or false. Is that the same thing as the biological function of some organ you have being served? That's where that stuff about popularity and believing you're in control comes in. That may be biologically optimal. Believing you're very popular may be biologically optimal. Believing that you're in control even when you're not may be biologically optimal. But there's another sense, the sense in which we have standards of truth and falsity, in which it's not optimal, it's false. Illusions could be biologically optimal. So that suggests that the strategy is not going to work. We've got the appeal to function gives you a kind of right and wrong. That's all right. But the trouble is, it doesn't look like it's the same right and wrong as truth and falsity. Is that better? Okay, plain as day. I mean, back where we started, right? But without one small problem. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do now is look at Fodor's example, Fodor's way of setting out this problem, and then go on to look at Fodor's way of giving a solution to it. So here's Fodor. Fodor says, I see a cow, which, stupidly, I misidentify it. I take it to be a horse. So taking it causes me to say, horse. This is an extremely implausible example, but it may help if I mean, I think it is fair to say that Fodor is a city boy, and dislikes and distrusts the countryside. It's actually not that implausible, given the individuals involved. Yeah, okay, I mean, there are plenty of examples of this kind of thing. I mean, another example of Fodor's actually is the frog that, whenever a fly goes past it, whaps out its tongue. Right? That's very adaptive, right? So then the scientist gets a small black piece of cotton wool and draws it in front of the frog, and the frog's tongue whaps out, and you say, ha, fooled you, gotcha there. That's an analogous case. But of course then the same problem comes up. Is what we've got here, is a frog representing flies and making a mistake, or does the frog just represent small round black objects and whap out at everything that identifies as a small round black object, and often enough they turn out to be flies. You see what I mean? This same problem is easy to generate lots of examples of. Okay, but this is Fodor's. Sorry. Okay, so here we are. Anyway. Here is Fodor stupidly misidentifying a cow and taking it to be a horse, saying horse. So he says, we want it to be that my utterance of the word horse means horse in virtue of the causal relation between, at any rate, some horse tokenings and horses. That's okay? That's the way the causal theory works. It's got to work like that. And in fact, if it doesn't work like this, nobody has any idea what to say. Yeah. So it must be something like that. So when he says we want it there, I think that's actually quite persuasive. We do want that because we don't have any idea how to go about explaining how meaning works if it's not that. I mean, suggestions are welcome, but unless you think of something, then I don't know of any other good idea. But on the other hand, he says, although